It's 10 p.m. in Banjul. Good evening and welcome to the news. We begin with our top stories this hour. His Excellency the President, Adama Barrow, arrives in his home village of Makamankunda amid series of official engagements in the Upper River region. The Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, PURA, in partnership with the Gambia Revenue Authority, impounds quantities of fossil fuel from an unlicensed vendor in Gunjur West Coast region. Plus, the Minister of Trade, Regional Integration and Employment, Sidi Keita, and team continue on their tour of industrial facilities in the country. Away from home, the streets of downtown Kabul changes a little, but now the roundabouts and intersections are washed over by Taliban militia. And in sports, Egypt is hosting the Arab Women's Football Cup this week. The competition is one of the few available for women's teams that feature North African and Asian countries. Well, these stories and more coming ahead in this edition of the news at 2200 hours. I am Fatoumata Cham and thank you for joining us. Welcome back to GRTS News at 2200 hours. Now, His Excellency the President, Adama Barrow, has arrived in his home village of Makamankunda amid series of official engagements in the Upper River region. The Gambian leader is expected to visit several project sites and later hold meetings. Mamadou Jallow is traveling with the President and he now reports.
The President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, accompanied by Lady Sajo Barrow, left Banjul this afternoon for the Upper River region for a series of activities. The President is expected to visit several project sites within the Upper River region that have been completed. These include the Basse Market, the Basse Ring Road project, and the two bridges in Basse and Fatoto. Whilst in the Upper River region, the President is also scheduled to attend a meeting in Jimara, where he will address NPP party supporters. Along the way, people lined the main road to cheer the motorcade, with the President making several stops including in Jara Soma, Dongoraba and Willingraba. As the President approached his home village, his supporters staged a massive reception and Sare Mansali, mobbing his motorcade and escorting him to his residence. A similarly excited crowd welcomed the President as he entered Makamankunda, keeping a lively atmosphere to mark his arrival in what has become a usual sight every time he comes to the Upper River region. Mamadou Jallow, GRTS News.
Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, PURA, in partnership with the Gambia Revenue Authority, the Fire and Rescue Services and the police on Wednesday impounded quantities of fossil fuel from unlicensed vendors in Gunjur, West Coast region. The seizure was made during a raid on suspected illegal vending points in the Greater Banjul area and the West Coast region. Ibrahim Jallow has more details in this report.
6 jerrycans of gas, oil, and a barrel of petrol were seized from dealers during a search for illegal vending of fuel. The Director General of PURA, Yusufa M. Job, said the move was meant to ensure safety for life and properties and to prevent loss of revenue payable to the state. He called on patriotic Gambians to be vigilant and report such activities.
We have embarked on a serious campaign together with the authorities that are also involved in this kind of activities, including the police and fire service, as Malamin has said. But we also want to urge the general public, who are the main people who suffer from this menace, to be vigilant and active. This is not about PURA or about the police, this is about citizens.
Some suspected illegal vending points were visited on Wednesday, but most of them closed before the arrival of the task force. Officials say the dealers must have prior information. Modula Minsompo Sise is the director responsible for water, petroleum and energy at PURA. He recounted a couple of fire incidents in the combos that were attributed to products, hence the need to get rid of hideout fuel vendors.
PURA has started investigating the source of these products, where they're coming from, who is involved, and we have been receiving a lot of support from our sister regulatory bodies NEA, the Gambia Revenue Authority, as DG said, at a very high level. And yesterday, we started the enforcement action, which is ongoing.
Principal Environment Inspector Ndiena Nying said this is an environmental concern and must not be allowed.
We need to make sure that your activities, your operational activities, it conforms with the environmental laws, and actually we have to check the suitability of that particular operation, environmental suitability of that particular operation within that locality. So this is why we have to work closely with PIRA and other stakeholders to see to it that this stops and they formalize themselves.
The multi-task force has vowed to continue investigation into illegal fuel business and that perpetrators will be dealt with accordingly. Ibrahima Jallo, GRTS News.
Now, the National Disaster Management Agency has conducted a cash transfer to nearly 2,000 families across the country. The gesture, courtesy of the government of the Gambia, is meant to support the victims of the July 7th windstorm. Louis Mende has more details in this report.
The North Bank, Central and Upper River regions, victims of the July 7th windstorm, receive unconditional cash transfer from the government. Each beneficiary family received $22,500 in total. In the North Bank region, 868 households benefited. Karba from Yalal village is one of the beneficiaries. He was thankful to the government.
All my structures in my compound were destroyed. Even my, my television was having a problem, my foodstuff, everything. I was left with zero.
During the last winter?
During the last rainy season, heavy wind that came. I was the most affected one in Yala. We are really happy with the government. Anybody who is part and parcel of it.
Lamin Sedikan, the governor of the North Bank region, and Chief Fabala Kinte praised the government for the intervention to help the victims of the windstorm to recover.
The president came here, he has seen it himself, and then went back and pledged this huge amount of money to help the people of North Bank. It's highly appreciated.
The government unconditional cash transfer to the victims of the July 7th windstorm targeted close to 2,000 households across the country. Ablai Sise from Mahmoud Fana in the Central River region said he lost 1,000 bags of millet, chicken feed, and granule seed to the windstorm and rain. The cash transfer will help him recover the loss, he said. Other beneficiaries intend to use the money to rebuild their lost structures. The two widows, Fatuma Dabayo of Central River region and Ja Konde of Sutukonding in the Upper River region, said the July 7th windstorm left them with nothing to inherit. They praised the government for the donation. The money was extended to the beneficiaries by the National Disaster Management Agency. Lamin Sedi is the disaster coordinator for the North Bank region.
So definitely this is my first time to come across such kind of support from government directly.
NDMA Program Officer Babukar Fofana said the selection criteria was painstakingly done.
Targeting criteria that we use to select the most vulnerable out of the number of people assessed includes those who lost their houses completely, those who lost partially, those houses that were partially damaged, families that have fatality. The people who receive first round, meaning this round, going to receive their 2 months balance, which is $14,000 per household. And the new beneficiaries that are added to the list, those people are receiving their 3 months ration, one of that is $22,500.
The distribution of the cash is expected to be followed by post-distribution monitoring. Lamin Fati, the disaster coordinator for the Central River region, explained.
As we give resources, we need to go back to their sites to look at the way they live in terms of their building structures and in terms of their foods, whether they are able to restore some of those things, because they are very important because currently the resources we are giving to them, we feel that they can even build a house, a mud house.
In the Upper River region, 71 households benefited from the cash donation. Hudul Koli is the disaster coordinator for the area.
You know, July 7th is the third experience that URR had. In fact, that is the one that reached the entire country. URR got about 2 windstorms before the July 7th, and the destruction was really very huge, and it has caused a lot of losses to different households within the region.
The July 7th windstorm also left 2 people dead across the country. Louis Mendy, GRTS.
Now, the Minister of Trade, Regional Integration and Employment, Sidi Keita, and team continues on their tour of industrial facilities in the country. Now, speaking at Kanifing, Minister Keita said the initiative is meant to collect first-hand information on the operations of industries in compliance with best practices. Modu Bajan tells us more.
Continuing its tour of industrial facilities around the Gambia, the Minister of Trade, Regional Integration and Employment, Sidi Keita, and team visited Gasem Cement Factory at Kanifing.
When you walk towards industrialization, it's not just sit in the office. You have to walk the talk, be on the ground, see for yourself, listen, interact with the players. So that has been the basis of our visit. First of all, I will go to emphasize that Gasem is a 100% owned company by Heidelberg Cement of Germany, which is an international company, and it shows the investment friendliness of the Gambia as an investment destination. We have been very impressed from the number of employees. The management has a high percentage of Gambians, and of all our visits, we have come across a female CEO, which we are very proud of.
In the words of Mam Binta John, the managing director of Gasem, the move is significant as it demonstrates their importance while informing authorities about challenges and other issues concerning the industry.
I think a lot of progress has already been made because we have been constantly communicating with the ministry in terms of our challenges, in terms of the things that we want to do. So for us, we will continue this dialogue and sitting down, visiting like they have done today, which means that they have come and actually seen what is on the ground. So communication is key.
The Chief Executive Officer, Gambia Investment and Export Promotion Agency, Usainu Senghor, said the Gambia needs to do more towards being a producer and not a consumer nation. He applauded Gasem as a significant partner, saying that cement is so important to the country's economy.
We have entered into general protocols with ECOWAS, as well as the coming of the AU free trade agreement as well. And if we do not prepare our factories or our businesses to produce, we will end up being a consumer nation. And we are glad that Gasem, one challenge, has undertaken the challenge to reinvest and expand their operations. And as we speak, we are also talking to them to see how they will create depots up country as well, so that it makes cement more available to people, but also the price gets reduced, and they can also be in a better position to export to regional countries as well. So we are great that they're taking our offer, and we will work with them all the way.
The team also visited Finnish Profiles Africa Company Limited, which among its various interventions produces corrugated iron sheets and builds kiosks. Taking the visitors on a tour of the facility, its managing director Farimang Saho called for public patronage so as to boost industrialization in the Gambia. Elsewhere, this hospital, being constructed by the Egyptian African International Investment Group, was visited. Marwan Bandu is the project manager of the edifice, worth around $20 million.
We had a big pleasure today from the minister visit today. We appreciate his visit, and we are very for this delegation. We hope also to provide and improve as much as we can for Gambia to construct more projects. We hopefully going to hand over this project by end of this year with all facilities and utilities for the hospital. So we are trying to keep our work up as much as we can.
The last stop for the day is a $20 million hospital funded by the Egyptian African Investment Group, and we believe this will be addressing the acute shortage of hospital facilities in the country. And as has been mentioned by Brother Marwan, once this facility is concluded, we believe it will help address the need to evacuate patients to the neighboring Senegal.
While authorities re-echoed the vitality of industrialization, stakeholders like GASEM and Finnish Profiles Africa Limited hope for more government intervention so as to continuously improve the sector. Modu Bajan, JRTS.
Now, COVID-19 is not just a health issue. It is a profound shock to society, to economists and women security officers who are at the center of caregiving and response efforts in the country. Now, in light of this, GRTS examines the plight of female police officers enforcing COVID-19 protocols and regulations during the partial lockdown as part of measures to curb the spread of the deadly pandemic. Ibrahima Sane has the rest of that story in this report.
As frontline responders, women security officers are making critical contributions to address the outbreak every day. Additionally, they are at increased risk of infection and loss of livelihood. Speaking to GRTS, Inspector Mariama Aifati of the Gambia Police Force explained the state of the Gambia Police Force.
We are mandated by the Constitution in 4 different ways. First, we are responsible for the protection of lives and properties of individuals, whether Gambians or non-Gambians alike. We are actually also mandated with the prosecution and apprehension and prosecution of offenders, maintenance of law and order.
According to Inspector Fati, women security officers face tremendous challenges in enforcing COVID-19 protocols, citing the complacency from the public on the virus.
One of the challenges is people will say, well, we really don't care about this. Can you point somebody who has died as a result of COVID? If you cannot, and they say, well, it means this corona has not been existing in the Gambia. We also have groups that will say, we really don't believe in the existence of COVID at all. So if really COVID is not in this world, or it is not in existence, what is the need for us to be following certain protocols? So these are things that we are often challenged with.
Inspector Fati, however, lamented on abuse of women in general during the pandemic due to their vulnerability.
That is very true, and that abuse of women is not necessarily limited to security officers, because apart from enforcing the law where people are subjected to a lot of abusive languages, you could also understand that women, as women, are often exposed to this kind of abuses, and not because they are law enforcers, but because they are women.
Inspector Mariama Jallo Kasama of the Gambia Police Force expressed concern over gender-based violence, noting that the trend is increasing despite efforts to address it.
As a police officer, we have a very important role to play when it comes to the safety of our people in the country. So no one is an exception. Challenges that we face again is when it comes to SGBV, and sexual and gender-based violence, has increased during the COVID-19, because most of the time this domestic violence that we encounter, not only as police officers, but within our environment and societies, we do see how it works, because COVID has impacted on our health, it has impacted on our jobs as well.
Inspector Jallo Kasama said COVID-19 has changed the daily operations of security agents in the country. According to Madam Kasama, the Gambia Police Force have benefited from series of trainings on the prevention and control of the virus, courtesy of the Minister of Health, NGOs and partners. Ibrahima Nsane, GRTS News.
Now, the Gambia Red Cross Society and the World Food Programme, in collaboration with the Gambia government, on Tuesday began tree planting exercise targeting 3 regions across the country. The project, supported by the United Nations Peace Building Fund, seeks to plant about 45,000 trees in 10 communities across the North Bank, the Central, as well as the Upper River regions of the country. Usman Mane is with the tour party, and he filed in this report.
Approach to addressing negative effects of climate change and conflicts in and between communities took a new dimension through reforestation, supported by the United Nations Peace Building Fund. The project, implemented by the Gambia Red Cross World Food Programme in collaboration with the government of the Gambia, targets to plant about 45,000 trees in 3 communities across the country, beginning in Basik in the North Bank region.
The carbon that comes out from vehicles, the carbon that comes from the factories, those are taken in by the trees, so trees help us in sequestrating those carbons. so that the fresh air will go into the atmosphere. So without that, we will also have a problem. That's why we are complaining of global warming. The ozone layer is already depleted because of the carbon that escaped into the atmosphere.
Land disputes is one of the driving forces of conflicts, and its existence continues to undermine development. With the new outlook on the project's mediation efforts, Abdullahi Fay, Director of Programs at the Gambia Red Cross, explained the project objectives.
What we are trying to do is to promote peaceful coexistence among people, among communities, as climate change have a negative impact on their settlements, and these have brought some even disputes when it comes to land issues. This project is targeting 10 communities, that is 4 in North Bank region, 4 in Central River region, and 2 in Upper River region. And we went to all these communities and discussed with them. They identify what type of trees do they want, and those are the trees that we brought to them.
Food systems globally are affected by climate change, thus low agricultural production and productivity. We can no longer have the bumper harvest in granules, millet, maize, like we used to in those days, because of soil infertility and inadequate rainfall, thus affecting our livelihood. Similar messages were put across to beneficiaries in Tambacoto, Kubandar, and Makafarafenye to help grow trees to maturity. Each of the 4 communities in NBR received 3,500 seedlings, comprising fruit trees such as lemon, cashew, orange, mango, locust bean, moringa, as well as silk cotton and malina. Among the beneficiaries is Majenu Sanyang of Basik, who thanked the donors for the support while highlighting the significance of trees. The project has put in place sustainable measures by providing wheelbarrows, rakes, cutlasses, and watering cans to targeted communities.
So our emphasis is more on you plant the trees, you ensure that they grow, and that means you need to make sure that they have the necessary manure, they have the necessary protection from fire disasters, and that's why we are even also going to monitor the mortality rate among the trees.
Similar exercise will take place in Jalokunda, Haifa, Samba, Mandinka, and Wolof in CRR, respectively. Usman Mane, GRTS.
Now, the Pipeline Mosque Foundation on Thursday donated 500 bed sheets to the Kanifing General Hospital for onward distribution to 7 other hospitals across the country. As Sainabu Jan reports, the foundation also presented $50,000 check to the Kanifing General Hospital mortuary to support its upkeep and management. This is her report.
Partners of the Kanifing General Hospital, the Pipeline Mosque Foundation, comes to the aid of the Kanifing General Hospital at a time when the facility needs urgent help. The CEO, Keba Mane, says that comfort for patients is their #1 priority.
Bed sheets are always in need in hospitals, always. And patients are comfortable when they lie on these beds. So comfort for a patient is one step to heal the patient in a healthcare setting. So you're doing a good job, and we really appreciate it. Despite the COVID pandemic, that did not relent you to continue your support to hospitals.
Alfan Jai, a board member of the Kanifing General Hospital, prayed for the Mosque Foundation, expressing appreciation for well-timed gesture.
For this time, we are not going to say thank you, because we've been saying thank you, thank you, thank you for the past years. This time we are going to pray instead of thanking you people. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shower his countless blessings, protections, guidance, and successes in all your heart desires. And may he grant you the best of luck and plenty of wealth to be able to be doing these generous donations. And we will want you to extend it to your sponsor, Mr. Ahmed Diab.
Alhaji Abdullah A.B. Njai, an executive member of the Mosque Foundation, and Imam Mas Njai, both thanked the main donor Ahmed Diab and held the growing partnership between the two institutions.
To come here and help our brothers and sisters who are hospitalized in various facilities in this country. I want to once again extend our appreciation to Ahmed Diab for this very generous donation and offer every year. He's so committed to it that even when we don't even remind him, he tells us it's coming. So may Allah bless him, give him the best reward, safeguard him, give him good health and prosperity. We want to continue the partnership.
7 different hospitals across the country will be benefiting from the bedsheet donation. On behalf of sister hospital administrators, the Farafenye General Hospitals, and Famara Silla, thank the Mosque Foundation and donors for offering timely support.
The best way we can reciprocate it is to thank you and nothing else, because we cannot do what you are doing. But we thank you, and we thank you very well. We cannot thank you enough. We really appreciate it. And on behalf of my beneficiary hospitals, I want to take this pleasant opportunity to express our heartfelt happiness for this gesture. These donations came at a time when they are urgently needed.
Zainab Jain for GRTS News.
And we'll now head for our first break. When we come back, we'll look at news from beyond our shores. Do stay with us. Welcome back to GRTS News at 2200 hours, and we now look at news from beyond the Gambia. Now, at first glance, the streets of downtown Kabul have changed a little, but now the roundabouts and the intersections are washed over by Taliban militia. To parts of the outside world, though, this could be a sign of foreboding for Afghanistan's future, but the militia on the ground are clear. They are there to govern. We have more in the CGTN report.
A new dawn for the people of Afghanistan. Welcome or not, life is now different. But already the streets of Kabul have resumed their daily rhythm. There are different eyes watching over the people now, but their message is one of reassurance. I have 200 people with me, says this Taliban commander. I'm responsible for them, and we are here to protect the people's property, honor, and dignity. And, of course, provide security. Those shopkeepers that spoke to the cameras were generally positive about the Taliban presence and its immediate effect on street crime. But there are also deep concerns about the pressures on the economy, now deprived of foreign aid. The banks are struggling with cash flow, and the currency, the Afghani, is falling fast, and money traders are refusing to handle it. Taliban patrols have moved into the airport, scene of so much chaos and violence in the past weeks. Now just physical debris remains. What the Americans couldn't take, they destroyed. And Taliban commanders were able to brief their troops at a fence which until 2 days ago was patrolled by NATO troops. But there's more political celebration too. In the city of Host, close to the border with Pakistan, crowds staged a mock funeral for the departed forces, carrying coffins draped with their national flags through the streets. At a military airbase in Qatar, the last of the American transporters has touched down, delivering those who cleared the closing checkpoints to a new staging post. From there, it's almost certainly, for these people, on to the United States. But in Serbia, almost at the European Union, a group of Afghans lines up for their daily meal in a holding center. Many of these people have been on the road for months. They're stranded, having made their way through Iran and Turkey overland. Their days are filled with anxious calls to family members left behind at home. They don't believe the Taliban has changed.
They're gonna target those people who work with government. They're telling them that no problem, come to your jobs, continue living normal, but no, that's not the case. Things are going in a different way. So, yeah, I'm so worried about it.
Yes, the Taliban announced amnesty
but still people scared that they work, because if you work for foreign countries, you are considered as a threat to the Taliban, or you are considered as maybe a traitor, something like that.
The war may be officially declared over, but it has a lot more damage to do before the door is finally closed.
Now, Tanzania's Serengeti National Park started to see the return of tourists from across the globe as countries push on with their vaccines rollouts. Thousands have come to the park to witness the most iconic sight, the wild beast migration, as well as the big five of the African savannas. Now, officially established in the early 1950s, the Serengeti is one of Africa's oldest national parks and one of the most famous in the world. We have more in the CGTN report.
The Serengeti National Park is not only a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but it is also one of the most famous wildlife sanctuaries in the world. Of all of Tanzania's 22-plus national parks, the Serengeti is the crown jewel, generating almost half of the total revenue for the Tanzania National Parks Authority. Juliet Sumari has been a guide at the park for over 4 years. After a year of disruptions due to COVID-19 travel restrictions, she says she's glad crowds have picked up this summer, as vaccinated tourists from all over the world come to witness one of the most spectacular sights in the natural world.
We thank God the situation now is not like it was last year. Now we have guests, as you can see. Every couple of days you receive tourists. Little by little, over time, we can get a lot. So I'm thankful to God.
The park is the ultimate destination to spot lions, rhinos, elephants, leopards and buffaloes, commonly known as Africa's Big Five. The Serengeti Park was named Africa's leading park in 2019 and 2020 by the World Travel Awards. Tourists who came to the park say they are not disappointed.
Every day we have had something that we thought could not possibly be topped, and the next day is even more spectacular. So we've been able to see all the animals in the Big Five, so much more variety and wildlife than I thought we would encounter. In practice, it's been absolutely incredible.
You hear it before you see it. One of the Serengeti's most sought-out sights, the thundering hooves on the Great Plains, as a great migration gets underway. Over 1.5 million wildebeests in perpetual motion. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, each year over 450,000 tourists from all over the world come to the Serengeti to witness this. Thousands of wildebeest crossing River Mara into the Masai Mara Reserve. The Serengeti continues to lure the world's top celebrities, musicians, actors, and sports personalities. It has been the site of many Hollywood productions and the inspiration behind Disney's The Lion King. But visitors say seeing it in the flesh is much more fulfilling.
To see this reality.
I have seen this from a lot of virtual reality, some documentary, television and publicity. But to be here to see this with my own eyes is amazing.
The Serengeti showcases the beauty of the world's circle of life. And after a difficult year, those here hope growing visitor numbers will breathe fresh life into the country's tourism sector. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Serengeti, Tanzania.
Well, let us do some sports now, because Egypt is hosting the Arab Women's Football Cup this week. The competition, that is one of the few available for women national football teams, features North African and Asian countries and is aimed at creating a platform to boost the game in both continents. CGTN's Abdel El Marouki brings us this report.
Egypt is hosting the third Arab Women Football Cup this week. Tunisia, Algeria, Sudan, and hosts Egypt are representing Africa, while Palestine, Lebanon, and Jordan are the Asian Arab countries in the tournament.
The Arab Football Federation is hoping to boost the sport with such competitions. We hope it will be a new kickoff for the sport in the region, and it will encourage Arab associations to work more on women's football. We were expecting more than 7 teams, but the COVID-19 travel restrictions stood in the way, and we insisted on holding the competition anyway to build momentum.
Themed Choose a Challenge, the tournament is keen to highlight lack of support for women's football in the Arab world. The competition has no sponsors or broadcaster interested to secure rights for the matches.
The attention women football is getting is little, but it's growing. I cheer for Sudan for joining for the first time. It doesn't matter if they lose by 10 or 20 goals. What matters is that they participated and they will do better in the next competition.
The Arab Football Federation is greatly supporting women football with this competition. We were quite slow in pushing the sport forward. Today, we are seeing Sudan establish a national team. Palestine is joining despite their struggle at home. The same applies for Lebanon and Tunisia. This competition is a kiss of life to women football.
The Arab Women Football Cup was established in 2006. Its second edition was held 9 years later. So far, the competition's biggest challenge is to be held at regular intervals. Egypt national women's team was reconstituted after 5 years for this competition. It is a great opportunity for North African nations to prepare for the 2022 African Women Cup of Nations qualifiers, which will begin on the 18th of October. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Well, that was all we had time for in this edition of the news at 2200 hours. But before we go, a quick look at our top stories this hour. His Excellency the President, Adama Barrow, has arrived in his home village of Makamankunda amid series of official engagements in the Upper River region. The Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, PURA, in partnership with the Gambia Revenue Authority, have impounded quantities of fossil fuel from unlicensed vendors in Gunjur in the West Coast region. Plus, the Minister of Trade, Regional Integration and Employment, Sidi Keita, and team continue on their tour of industrial facilities in the country. And away from home, the streets of downtown Kabul have changed a little, but now the roundabouts and intersections are washed over by Taliban militia. And in sports, Egypt is hosting the Arab Women's Football Cup this week. The competition, that is one of the few available for women national football teams, features North African and Asian countries. Well, that was all we had time for in this edition of the news. Thank you for watching and do have a wonderful evening.
Faith Matters. An interactive program brought to you by MTA International.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another edition of Faith Matters, where you, our viewers, set the agenda by the questions you ask. Jazakumullah, and thank you for those who have sent in their questions. And of course, we'll be looking forward to receiving further questions from the conversations, discussions and observations we have today. As our regular viewers will know, you can find previous Faith Matters programs on YouTube. Go onto YouTube, put in the words MTA Online 1, Faith Matters the name of the program, and hopefully you'll find your answer right there. And if not, you know what to do. Please send in your questions to faithmatters@mta.tv. That's faithmatters@mta.tv. And with that, it's my pleasure to welcome back to Faith Matters today, two regular panelists. Gentlemen, Jazakumullah, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Faith Matters once again. And of course, as my regular viewers will know, that joining me to my immediate right is, of course, Maulana Abdul Ghani Jahangir Khan Sahib, who's head of the French desk and a senior missionary here in the UK. Welcome, Jahangir Sahib.
Jazakumullah.
And to his right, and sitting right opposite me, of course, is the well-respected, and everyone, I'm sure our viewers also recognize him, is of course Dr. Zaid Ahmed Khan Sahib, who's the president of the Qaza Board, the Board of Jurisprudence for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in the UK. Gentlemen, welcome to Faith Matters. And well, one of the things which is often talked about on Faith Matters, we expressed lots of opinions, and that's perhaps appropriate. We go down under for our first question, which comes from Faizul Haq Sahib. His question is quite a